education was seen as an unnecessary luxury for society which had just come out of the dictatorship. At the time, only 1 in 15 people had a good command of a foreign language. There were few bookshops, and the Albanian market had a limited number of titles. During these difficult circumstances, the operation of the Educational Centre in Albania was founded. The Educational Centre is located in 7 different Balkan countries: Romania, Bulgaria, Moldova, Serbia, Montenegro, Kosovo, Albania. This centre offers the market more than 20,000 titles for the following languages: English, German, Italian, French, and Spanish. The educational disciplines that we own the exclusivity to are sciences, mathematics, computer sciences, arts, and others. The quality assurance of our products is based on the strong partnerships we have with the best publishers worldwide: Cambridge University Press, Oxford University Press, Pearson, Collins, Hodder, National Geographic Learning, Cengage, McGraw-Hill, HMH, Huber, Klett, Alma Edizioni, Edilingua, Centelliana, Penguin Random House, etc. The main language we offer to our language teaching market is English, German, Italian, French, and Spanish. We offer a wide variety of academic titles for higher educational institutions, particularly focusing on economics, medicine, social and natural sciences, and humanities. We also cover the state schools with a wide variety of foreign language textbooks approved by the Ministry of Education, specifically for English, German, and Italian languages. Private schools with foreign language teaching literature and other subjects in English. International schools with various subjects in English and digital learning platforms of teaching. Professional institutions with different language examination boards. University libraries with hard copies of academic books for specific subjects and digital resources accompanied by virtual libraries. Our partners consider us the one-stop shop solution and provider in their operation, as we assist in their curriculum implementation based on the examination boards students would like to enter in their final exam. But we also support clients with academic training of their staff in partnership with our foreign partners in order to succeed throughout the whole of their academic year. From small steps at the beginning, we steadily grew in our resources. We grew healthier and stronger every day, turning our service into the best offer for anyone that we supported. We aim to continue into the future to be your long life learning and support institution. Our goal is to be the #1 institution to bring international innovation to the educational world in Albania.
So you saw the video. It was something that we have prepared in order to give a vision to our company and you to get more out of our service and our products. So I have the pleasure just to welcome the first trainer for this webinar. It will be MADYLUS. She's a trainer and she has been present in our country for several times, but this time it will be online due to circumstances and we don't have the pleasure just to have a present. Anyway, thank you very much, Ola, for joining. Thank you to Cambridge University Press ELT department just for bringing her and offering this opportunity for our teachers, clients all over the countries, just to get a very professional training, I'd say, because due to Ola experience, of course, that it will be a great one. So, dear participants, I'm leaving the floor to Ola and thanking her very, very much just for being part of this day.
Ola, your mic, please open your mic.
I have. I'm ready. Hello, everybody. Good morning from a very sunny London this morning. I look very angelic with the sunshine on me, but it's not me. It's the sunshine. I'd like to say, first of all, a huge thank you to Bruna and her fabulous team. It's really sad not to be with you in person, but luckily we have this technology and we can bridge the gap between being in person and not being there at all. I'd like to just say I've just been watching the participants enter the room, and it's nice to see a few friends there, even friends from Greece. My friend George Raptopoulos is here, so it's really nice to feel welcomed. Even though I can't see you, I know that lots of people are there. I was just going to say, please do use the Q&A box, because I will try to get to your questions at some stage. And if you don't feel that your question has been answered, I will be showing you my blog address, and you can contact me anytime on my blog to ask me questions, and I promise I will answer those questions. Okay, so let me begin. The first session I'm doing here is a very interesting session in the sense that so many teachers ask me this question about how do I get my students to speak in English in their lessons? And this is a really interesting thing to consider, is how do we get them speaking? We want them to speak. We know that speaking is an integral part of learning a language, and we know that we want them to be practicing as much as possible. And we really, in order to practice speaking, you have to have something to speak about. So this is really what I'm going to be speaking about myself for the next half hour or so. So I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to you can speak in your head or you can speak out loud. What is your opinion about this? I'm hearing a lot of silence coming to me from Albania. This is, I think, the way that many students respond to the kind of questions they get asked in our classrooms, that if they had an opinion, they would share it with you. But quite often, the questions we ask them come from a direction they're really not expecting and that they're not prepared for. So a lot of the time there's nothing coming from our students. There is no comment. They are tongue-tied, maybe they're brain-tied as well. So why is this? Why do you think this is the case? If you want to put ideas into chat, please do. Apart from the fact I can't see your chat, so that's not going to work very well. So let me just guess what you're saying. The first thing that you might consider is that they actually don't know anything about the topic that you've asked them about. I feel that way about some of the questions in the course books where it says things like, what's your favourite sport to play? I wouldn't have anything to say about that. I don't really know about sport. Sport is not my thing. So if they don't know about the topic, they're not going to say anything. Obviously, you need language to speak. You need to have been prepared to have that linguistic what's it called, a wardrobe, a bank of language, the grammar, the vocabulary, the expressions to talk about a particular subject. And obviously, you know, it's quite a scary thing to speak in a foreign language. And being shy, being scared is a very natural phenomenon for students in the classroom. And the last thing I think is really important, especially with teenagers. And teenagers are at that incredibly sensitive time of their lives where they just don't want to say anything very personal. It's all too raw, it's all too, you know, opening yourself up in front of other students, in front of the teacher, is a very difficult thing to do. It's a very scary thing to do. So they're not going to be doing that. They're not happy to do that. So asking for opinions is not always an easy thing. So this is why quite often, you know, you ask a question, there's questions in the book, you throw the questions at your students and you get a very limited response. And you can see that down the line, this means they're not practicing very much English, not enough to do particularly well in exams or to further their development of language. Now, the first thing I think is really important is for all of us is to have a safe space, a space where we feel comfortable, where we feel secure. If we have a safe space for learning, this will give us confidence. Unfortunately, I think the English language classroom is quite often a scary space. And I was thinking about this online. If you are actually having to say something online, even on camera, it can be really scary. It can make you freeze as if you were in front of a creature like this or a creature like this. That quite often, traditionally, saying something could be met with a negative comment from teachers, picking out your mistakes, maybe even being judgmental about your opinion. And an opinion is an opinion, and that's, you know, I'm going to talk about that a bit more, but we're all entitled to our opinions. So I really want us to consider what is a safe space in a classroom, whether it be a real classroom or an online classroom. I think what I try to do very much is to create a space where everybody is trying to speak English, and that includes the teacher. So it's just the norm. You create a situation where it's the normal thing for everybody to be speaking English. And I think it's really important that everybody understands that mistakes are okay, especially when you're speaking, because when you're speaking, you don't have so much time to think about things, to plan things, to avoid making mistakes. But it's actually okay to make mistakes. I'm speaking at the moment, and my English is quite good, but I am making mistakes. I'm tripping over words. I'm searching for the right word. That's a normal thing to do when you're speaking. But of course, when you're a student, there's going to be a lot of hesitancy. There's going to be misuse of grammar and vocabulary. It's okay. We mustn't jump down our students' throats and make them feel that fear that we're the alligator about to chop their head off. I think a safe space in a classroom is one of celebration as well, that, you know, it's like, oh, well done, thank you for making that effort. Excuse me, thank you for sharing your ideas in this space, that it's a celebration, that this is, wow, this is amazing. We've all been trying to speak English here. But it's also very important that our role in the development of student speaking is a very clear and defined role, that we are actually thinking about how do we get step by step to build up the confidence and the abilities and the knowledge and the skills of our students to be able to be successful at speaking. So the idea is that we scaffold tasks. I don't know whether you've come across this term before, but this idea of that we support each step of the way. So we don't just say, talk about this, because that's really difficult. Talk about this pipeline in Canada. You know, this is just too difficult. But we give all the support necessary for students to be successful, because success is the most motivating thing in the world. If we're successful, we want to continue, we feel great about what we're doing, we feel confident about what we're doing. And that we give plenty of positive feedback. We don't pick out the mistakes and talk about those, but we pick out the good stuff. That was a really good word. I like the way you said that. You were really good at presenting your ideas. So lots of positive feedback. Something that I have on my notice board over my desk is this little thing from Carl Jung. I don't know whether you've come across Carl Jung, the psychologist. And he talks about the teacher and parent model. And I really think about this in terms of me as a teacher and as a trainer. And he talks about the 4 aspects of being a good teacher. The first one is to help students to think by giving them information, giving them food for thought, directing them, helping them move in the right way, giving them a strategy, give them a direction. Also caring about them, actually wanting them to be successful, not wanting them to trip up, but wanting to see them shine. And also giving them confidence to carry out whatever work they do. So that confidence thing is really important. And this, to me, this is kind of my mantra. And I look at it every day and think about how am I helping my students through this 4-part strategy. Well, that was a 4-part strategy. Now I'm going to introduce a 7-step strategy. I'm going to show you this quite quickly, and then I'm going to go through each step of the way. And it's this 7-part strategy to get students talking when you're doing your lessons in class or online. And it's actually an 8-part strategy because it also includes how the teacher is supporting and encouraging. We mustn't forget that really important step, that our encouragement, our kind of going, yes, well done, is a really important part of this process. So all of this is leading to getting students to respond and respond personally, to give an opinion, to make a comment, to contribute something for themselves. And this is really, you know, what underpins communicative language teaching. It's not just about say, oh no, the house has 3 windows. You know, that is a very low level way of communicating, but actually talking about what you think and what you feel, this is communication. So let's imagine we're in a classroom, say, of teenagers, and the topic might be modern art. So you say to a student, okay, tell me about modern art that you like. Now, a very normal response, or a very typical response for me, would be something like this. What? You know, the students quite often, they literally say, what do you expect me to say? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't, you know, it's just, this question has come out of the blue. And the students are not ready for the question, and they don't, quite often, they don't know what they know. Maybe it's because we've just asked them in English, or we've surprised them with the question. So step 1 of this 7-stage strategy is to activate prior knowledge. What do they know already? And, you know, we don't live in a bubble. You know, we have access to all sorts of things. And I was just thinking when I was watching that video of 25 years in Albania. I've been coming to Albania for about 12 years now, the first time I came. And I just think how much Albania has changed, even for me, just looking at it. And one of the ways it's changed for me is visually. There's just so much more colour. There's so much more images everywhere. The shops are full of amazing images. everywhere it's very bright, very lively. So there's a lot of stimulation going on, and students, as far as I know, are watching more TV. They have access to the outside world, to the world, the whole world. So they do know stuff and they've seen stuff, but sometimes they don't know that they've seen stuff. We see so many images, they're there in our heads. So I think it's really important to help students see that they know things. Now, the KWL approach is something I'm really keen on, and it's a very straightforward, very simple approach to dealing with any topic, whether it's speaking or reading, listening. It's, we want to try to get students at a good starting point, to activate prior knowledge. So the K is asking students, what do you know about something? Brainstorm, talk to each other. What do you know about something? What do you want to know? What do you wonder about this topic? And then at the end, as a kind of review, what have you learnt about this topic? So it's a very nice thing to have on your board as you work through something. So how do we activate some prior knowledge about, for example, modern art? Well, I love using images, and I might show a picture like this. And this is it's a very commonly used picture in lots of ways. You do see it a lot in media. Now, they may not have seen it before, but maybe they have. So my first question would be, have you seen it before? But then to sort of activate knowledge of things that they know anyway. What does it make you think? What do you think the person is thinking? Who is it? Do you like it? Now, these are all questions to start the student considering the topic, but also thinking about, what do they already know about things like this? What do they know about art? Art is talking to us. So what is it saying? Step 2, this is, I think, very much where we get the information, go back to Carl Jung, give information. We need input. So for some students, maybe they don't know very much about art because it's not an area of interest. So they do need to have this input. Now, lots of course books now, like Own It, have great video. And video is a great way to introduce a topic, especially something like art, where you need that stimulus. So showing students things, teaching them about a little bit about art. I know we're not art teachers, but English is not something, or any language is not something in a bubble, that, we need content. So actually, if you learn about art while you're learning about English, that's a bonus. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to stimulate students to get a response. Without a response, you don't get a comment. And step 3 is this idea of provoking critical thinking. Now, we talk about critical thinking a lot, but how do we actually do it? How do we move to higher order thinking skills? So if we think about this painting, if we show a painting, what kind of questions can we be asking students to get them thinking so that they will have something to say? And critical thinking is about these areas. So reflect on things and justify your opinions. So, for example, do you like this painting? Why? Well, I like it, and one of the reasons I like it is the colour. I just love that sky. It's just the most gorgeous orange. So think, explain, justify. That "because" is such a useful word. Be in touch with your feelings. Does it make you feel frightened? Does it make you feel sad? Does it make you feel amused? How does something make you feel? And this is vocabulary that is really important that our students should be learning. Make connections. What does this make you think of? What does it remind you of? Making connections in your brain is really important, because that's the way the brain works. They're all synapses in our brains that are firing and making connections. And this is where we get motivated. Oh, that reminds me of this. That makes me think of that. And think about, what is the message? Now, this could be a message in a text. And we know that exams are always asking us to understand what the underlying message is. But that's life, you know, when we're reading something, when we're seeing an advert, what is the message? Can we decode? Can we interpret that message? That's really communication. And critical thinking is about stimulating the imagination. So when we're looking at all these things, we want the students to imagine. We want them to not just say, it is a picture of a man, I can see 3 people. It's much more than that. And all these questions, all these investigations are very personal. They're not, you know, there's no wrong answer. And that's what I love about this. Sorry, I love the fact that there is no wrong answer, that we don't run out of ideas. So one of the things that I do with students with things like this is I give them a worksheet, or I show this on the whiteboard or your screen if you're teaching online, and give students a chance to think, what is that person thinking? What on earth is going through their mind? So it could be, oh my God, I haven't done my homework. It could be, when will this pandemic end? When will I be able to see my grandma? Whatever it is that's going through their heads, let them imagine, let them make connections between what they see and what they say. Then they will have something to say. Step 4 is a really interesting one. And that's, I think, a really important thing for when you're talking, is so that everyone has something different to say, is to research. And research is a really important life skill as well. And in questions like this, is find another interesting fact about an art form. Well, then you're going to have something to say, but how do you do that? I think research is something we have to help our students with. So before they do the research, they have to think, well, what am I looking for? What are the key words? If I'm going to go into a search engine, what am I looking for? Or what's the question I want to ask other students? And find the tools necessary, and then note-taking, organising, not cutting and pasting, because cutting and pasting is not a skill. It's a very lazy way of doing things. I know we do it, but in terms of developing and personalising, it's not very useful. And I just thought, at this stage, I just wanted to share with you some appropriate tools, because I do think it's a bit dangerous saying to any student, but especially to children, to under 18s, go online. There's a lot of rubbish out there. There's a lot of distraction out there. So I'm going to show you, and hopefully you'll have enough time to do this. I can put this up on my blog as well. A list of very useful, very kid-friendly search engines. So this is Kid Search, and you can see it's a kind of young person's version of Wikipedia. If you use Wikipedia, you'll see that they have these different colours. But it's been done in a way that there is nothing that you would not want students to see, and it is focused on what young people would need to know. So it's a kind of, it takes out some of the rubbish there. And here are some other child-friendly sites. And so even if you teach primary, you can use things like this. And it's really well worth having a look at them and sharing them with your students. And I think that, that is a really important thing to take away from here. Okay, so what we're doing through these steps here is trying to get our students to gather more information, to learn more. So we have something to think about, that it's not just, what do you think about X? I think nothing. Learn about X, explore this, and actually stimulating inquiry, stimulating that that need to know. I think we have that, but it can be dulled in the classroom. So at the moment, there is a real limit to how much we can do outside the classroom. Hopefully it won't be long before we can go out and we can explore our spaces, we can go to museums and parks and go to all these other places where we can really learn a lot. Students don't always see the link between the English language classroom and the outside world, but there's a lot to learn, a lot to bring back to the classroom. Obviously, they can survey, they can ask their friends, their family, what do you know, what's your favourite music, artist, etc. But at the moment, we're kind of stuck. But I think there is a lot of stuff out there that could be used. I've done some virtual tours of museums, which I'd never have gone to in the real world, in countries I've never visited. So there is room to explore. There are a lot of things our students could be exploring. And one of the things I think is really nice as well, especially now we have the technology, is getting students to make contact with students across the world. And there are some very, very good, very safe, very controlled websites and applications where you can do this. And that's a lovely way of learning other stuff to bring to the classroom. Obviously, we have to focus on language, and we have to give the students the ability to say things. So we need to input vocabulary, and we need to focus on the appropriate grammar that they need to use. So this needs to be done in a very controlled way. They need to focus, they need to practice, do grammar exercises, really think about the language they need. And if you look here, this is really quite extended vocabulary. Words like illustrations, contemporary dance, street art. But these are useful if they're going to talk about things. We're so often stuck as language learners because we just don't have that vocabulary. And what is interesting, and I was thinking about this, is how do we have controlled practice that is personalized? We're used to controlled practice, the exercises we have in course books, but how can we personalize it? Well, there's just a few examples, is things like this. This is a nice activity here. You've got the control. Have you seen this painting before? Present perfect. No, I haven't. What can you see? So we've got the modal, and then we've got very simple questions that you can follow. Now, if we take the present perfect, here's a nice little activity you can do with your students. Now, the question here, I'm going to give you 5 statements about me, all of them about experiences I've had, and 2 of them are false, okay? And I would like you to just read them and think about which 2 are false. I for some reason I can't see the chat, but you just keep that in your head. So there you go. I've ridden a camel in Egypt. I visited Machu Picchu in Peru. I've eaten camel in Egypt. I have met a member of the British royal family, and I haven't danced tango in Argentina. Can you guess which ones are false? Where am I lying? Okay, sorry, no prizes available because I can't give you a prize over the screen. These are the 2 that are false. I wonder if you guessed any of them. I was offered and did eat camel in Egypt. I've met Princess Anne, and unfortunately, part of my dream is to go to Argentina and go have tango lessons. But this is a nice activity. Can you see that it's very controlled, because all you have to do is write 5 sentences with the present perfect, but it's personal. You work with a partner, you talk to each other, you guess, you try and work out what could they have done, and you have to try and be sneaky and put in things to trick your partner. So at this, there are stages of the lesson when you can really focus on language but you can still personalize it, because it's only by personalizing that we can move towards having opinions, having comments. So that's say it's controlled and personalized. And this is a sort of activity you can do quite easily online, especially with Zoom, where you can use breakout rooms, or even students can do it for homework over the phone with each other and practice these kind of things. Okay, so step 7, this is the final step that we will talk about. How do you then get students? We've gone through all these stages. We've given them input. We've allowed them to use their critical thinking abilities. We've given them the language. We've given them the support. We've given them the encouragement. Don't forget that as well. And then we want them to respond personally. So you think about this. We've talked about all this. We've got lots of vocabulary. We have respected people's opinions. I'm going to show you 2 modern artists' work. And I just want you to think, which ones do you like and why? So here's MADYLUS. And this is huge. And this is made of rubbish and spray paint. And this is Christian Mensa. And as you see, he uses everyday objects. So this is what I would ask my students. Which one do you prefer and why? And at this stage, hopefully, they will have built up their confidence to share their opinions and feel very happy to say that and have something to say about it, and everybody can do it. When I say that they can talk about it, I don't mean necessarily one student talking to everybody in the class. I'm talking about group work, pair work. Making them stand in front of the class and speak is the alligator approach. We don't want them fearing that big audience. That's not necessary. And one of the things I think is really useful to encourage students to speak and to really share their opinions is project work. And part of project work is that they are having to collaborate and work together. And as they develop their English, you can feed in a lot of that language they need, like making suggestions of why don't we do this? That's a good idea. I disagree. You can feed in all that language so they're using it as much as possible, but they are expressing their own ideas and opinions. And project work does give you a lot of opportunities to use your English for a purpose. And I think that's a very important thing, that the English is there not just for doing an exercise, but actually to achieve something. And a huge part of project work can be presentations. And I'm sharing these pictures with you because I'm being very nostalgic. These are my students some time ago at my local university where I teach many summers, which I haven't done now for over a year. So I'm feeling quite nostalgic seeing them. But this is actually, they're quite a low level. This group of students, even though they were at university, were A1, A2 level students. And what I got them to was to be able to work together to then present with their opinions. And we were talking about designing space, designing workspace, what would be a nice place to work in. And what we did, we had the, again, here's the strategy, here's the scaffolding. You can see on the board behind them, there's the language, there's the vocabulary. So we did lots and lots of work on vocabulary. I set them the task. I said, I want you to design this office space in pairs. So pairs are really good, or threes, because everybody has to contribute. And they prepared what they wanted to say, and they rehearsed what they wanted to say. And that's a really important extra layer to it. So they're very low level, they're very anxious. They actually were very anxious about standing up, but they really enjoyed it because they were ready to do that. And then they presented. So here we have these ideas about step-by-step strategies to get students doing something meaningful, but sharing their ideas. Oh, and of course, we need to give feedback, positive feedback. They need to be able to give themselves feedback as well. So self-evaluation is really good. And you can do that with a checklist. You know, did I prepare well? Was I clear? Did the other students understand my ideas? So giving feedback as well to feed into further development. And my last slide's coming up. I'm just finishing. So here are the different stages, and they all fit into a very nice way to move towards making your own comments. So here is my blog if you want to contact me for other questions, and I shall pass along to Bruna and to Anna now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ola. Thank you. It was a pleasure having you here. It was an enlightening session that you had with us. Thank you very much for having the first time the honor to present a new product to our customers. And not only, because as you said in the beginning of your session, that it was, let's say, we don't have borders anymore. We have hundreds of participants all over the world that are attending this webinar, and we thank all of them for staying with us during this Saturday. So it was only the recent course that Cambridge University Press had launched, and we will have our business development for the region, Anna Bola, who has been with us for several years in different events and supported us with different events that we have organized. But this time she will present to us Cambridge One, the recent and the very update platform that Cambridge University Press is using for the resources to support the teacher and to make it, well, let's say, feasible to everyone. Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much. I hope that if questions will raise by the end of the sessions, of course, that we will have time just to answer to them during our breaks or during the end of the conference, or get back to you through the emails that we have as contact. So I'm leaving to Anna to present Cambridge One.
Thank you, Bruna. Thank you very much for a very nice and warm introduction, and happy birthday to Educational Center. Happy 25th birthday. Welcome and hello to everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, Bruna, again for inviting us and giving us the opportunity to present and present at this event. I hope you're all well. I hope you're all safe and coping with the challenges that the last year has brought to all of us. It has been a difficult year, and with the demands of online and being away from the classroom, it means that teachers have to rely even more on online and digital resources. So in this session today, I'm going to talk to you about Cambridge One, which is our new learning environment for teachers and learners. I won't be able to look at the chat box or the Q&A box, but feel free to post any questions, and I'll take a look after my presentation, and I'll try to answer all your questions. So what is Cambridge One? Cambridge One is our new learning environment for learners and teachers. It's very flexible and easy to use. It can be accessed from any device, and it offers clear and measurable data. So it has really useful data for teachers and learners. So I've picked three things that I think are really important to highlight in Cambridge One. First of all, talking to teachers around the world, we realize that with the increasing use of online materials and platforms, it's very important for teachers and learners to be able to access everything in one place. Equally important, of course, is having materials that appeal to learners. So we include age-appropriate materials depending on the age of the student. And of course, the content and the types of activities that are offered have to be relevant to students and learners. I'm going to give you a few examples from Cambridge One, mainly from the courses that you see here, Own It and Open World. Own It is our new secondary course that is available in Cambridge One. This is not to say that these are the only courses available on Cambridge One. The list is growing, and we will be migrating existing resources from other courses to Cambridge One, and eventually Cambridge One will be the one place that teachers and learners visit to access all their resources, everything they need to learn or teach. So let's take a quick look at what's available for learners in Cambridge One. First of all, a little bit of terminology, which you'll hear this term more and more often. Practice Extra. What is Practice Extra? Practice Extra are online activities, online resources available via Cambridge One. They're marked automatically, so students and teachers receive instant feedback, and they're available in self-study or in class-based mode. So as I mentioned earlier, the experiences in Cambridge One are age appropriate. So they're designed for the different age groups. So you can see here in this example, in the far left image, we have images that are suitable for primary learners. And then moving to Own It, which is a course which is secondary for teenagers, we have sort of more teeny images and layout. And then far right, we have a more sort of mature look for teenagers or young adults. And this is an example taken from Open World. So it's important to offer an experience that's relevant to learners. And a little bit of research. So learning happens via our working memory, which has very limited capacity. Learning is inhibited, and we overwhelm the learner's working memory, and we are unable to process new information. And there are several ways that a learning management system can help with this. We can take a look at a couple of examples here. For example, we have an activity taken from Own It. You can see here that the activities are chunked into small manageable bites, which means that the students have access to the question, and they have a choice of the responses below. There's clear indication of completion. So on the top of the screen, you can see that the student has completed 3 questions out of 6, and there are 3 remaining. And there are clear data and instructions. And of course, feedback is automatic. So the activities are marked automatically. So what does this mean? It means that we're not overloading the student with additional information that they don't need. And this helps them with their learning. It makes them more successful with their learning. So another key element in learning, of course, is our games. So this is an essential and important element in Cambridge One as well. So we have included age-appropriate games for all courses, and they have really attractive visuals and design, and the gamification element, which is that they basically they are involved in playing a game, but they're also recycling the language that has been introduced in the course, and this is an element of gamification which helps learner engage in their own learning. And you can see in the next slide, we can see an example of the feedback that students receive. You can see here that we have 2 examples. One is a student that has not done that very well. They got 2 out of 7. And then we have another student who has done 5 out of 5. So they receive feedback and they receive medals, but they also receive encouraging messages. So the one that hasn't done really well, they got a great start encouraging message, and the one that did really well, obviously, it's amazing. And again, an element of gamification is included here with images to get students involved and motivated. The content, the types of activities in Cambridge One are designed to be used across all devices. And that means that they are adaptive to all screen sizes. And Cambridge One actually is one of the first learning environments that's been specifically designed for use on smartphones. So it can be used on the go. And children can use them in tablets, phone, smartphone, your laptop or your desktop. Actually, from experience, we found that primary level children tend to use computers or tablets, and then it's usually as they grow older, they might start using them via their mobile phone or smartphone. One of my favorite features of Cambridge One comes with Own It, and Olga briefly earlier touched upon it. It's called Collaboration Plus. What is Collaboration Plus? Collaboration Plus is a way for learners and teachers to work on projects online. And how does it work? Teachers can create small groups in Cambridge One. They can assign the project that they want to students. It could be 3, 4 students. And then students meet in their group, they do their research, they work on the content and their presentation, and then they present the project. The teacher is able to send instant feedback and to the group, but individually as well. This is a really, really great tool. It couldn't have come at a better time. Obviously, with COVID, it is a little bit more difficult for teachers and students to work in groups and do project work. And Own It Collaboration Plus takes that burden away from teachers of how to coordinate this. And it's also really great for learners because they work on so many skills. They work on communication, collaboration, research, critical thinking, analytical thinking, and the list goes on. And before I present to you the resources that are available for teachers, I just wanted to quickly show you a couple of slides with the digital resources that are available for Own It. So Own It comes with Practice Extra, which we said are the online activities. It comes with an ebook, and this will be available in July. So a student will have an activation code in their student materials, and by activating this code, they'll be able to unlock the list of materials that you see here. Collaborate Plus, which is the way to do projects online with your fellow students. And students also have access to audio and video. And similarly for Open World, which is a course for suitable for general English as well as exam preparation, there is Practice Extra available. And because it's a course that can be used for Cambridge exam preparation, we've also included our brand new online practice tests, which are called Test and Train. So depending on the level, so if you're using, for example, C1, you will have Cambridge English Advanced practice test materials within your course. It's optional, but it can be taken, even if you're not a Cambridge exam preparation center, it can be taken for practice. There's also an ebook available for students and audio and video. But there is plenty of material available for teachers. And obviously, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, one of the main worries that teachers have these days is just getting everything together, accessing the materials, downloading the materials. With Cambridge One, we've added everything in one place. So I'm taking an example from Own It. You can see there is by unlocking your teacher materials, you have a list of the Practice Extra, your Presentation Plus software, which is the interactive whiteboard software, and which is, I think, essential for teaching online these days. You have your photocopyable materials in the Teacher Resource Bank, as well as Collaboration Plus, access to student resources, and a tool to create your own tests. So you have everything in one place. You can see, let me just, excuse me. You can see if you choose to add students in a class and use the Practice Extra component in class-based mode, you can access all the students' data. And of course, marking is automatic, which means that it saves you from working on correcting all the activities. And you can see how many medals the students have received, the average score, and average time that they have spent on each activity. So it's a really great way to monitor your class's progress. Now, there is training for teachers available in Cambridge One too. For every course that we're publishing on Cambridge One, I'm just listing 3 examples here. We will be making a free teacher training online course available for teachers. These courses are specifically designed for teachers who are teaching, for example, Own It or Evolve or Primary Path. And they offer a mixture of familiarizing teachers with the platform and the pedagogy and approach of the course. You can explore Cambridge One as a teacher. You can explore it today. If you sign up, the library is open. You don't need to have a specific activation code in order to browse through the content. You can sign up on cambridgeone.org as a teacher, and there is plenty of help available. We have included a help section with information, with support for learners, teachers, administrators, but for parents as well. And in addition to the guides that are available, we've created YouTube videos that navigate the user and support them throughout each stage. So to sum up, Cambridge One is our brand new learning management system that you can access to create classes and access all your teaching materials in one place. It has content that is age appropriate. So depending on the level you teach, you know that the material will be relevant to students, and it's data that you can trust and is relevant. It offers revision from the main course that you're teaching. And of course, you can access data such as your student data and progress reports. So that's all from me. I don't know how I'm doing with time. Here is my email address if you wish to contact me. I'm now going to look at the chat and answer any questions. And I will also add some links, some useful links with Cambridge One materials for you to take a look at. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much for this session. As you saw, it is one of the platforms that Cambridge University Press has put all together to support teachers. The resources, but I am very happy, as Anna mentioned, that they are not only the resources and the audio and video materials, the interactive materials, but also a platform that evaluates students as a learning management system, but also recently they have had a teacher training, which is really something that we need to support teachers. We are facing challenging times. I know how difficult it is for teachers to be all the time teaching, although online or through in presence in the class in our country. But I am happy that it will be Cambridge University Press always supports the teacher, and it will be a space there for teachers to have their own time to attend this training and to assist, to help, with the resources that they are using. Thank you, Anna, for the support that you have given to our teachers, either to the state schools, to private institutions, or even to international ones that we are collaborating with the resources that you are having. Thank you very much for this online support, because it is so crucial just to have everything in one place, even for the coming year. Thank you very much. So, after this presentation of the resources, as you heard from Anna, it will be Open World, which is a secondary and adult course that teaches, that is taught not only for general English, but exam preparation as well. I know how important it is exam preparation for teachers, because they want their student to have the great marks in their examinations. So Ola will give tips now how to manage those mixed ability classes, how to get the most of those resources that they are using in order to succeed. So Ola, for the second session, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm just going to find... Ooh. Oops, sorry. I'm going to... Small technical hitch. Oops. I'll be with you in a moment. This is the great thing about technology.
Yes, don't worry, things that always happen. 1 more minute just before your session.
That's okay, I'm getting there.
Thank you, Ola.
Not enough coffee this morning, that's probably the problem. Okay, before I start, I picked up one question in the Q&A about the previous session I did, and it was a very good question, but the person who left it was anonymous for some reason, so I'm still going to answer the question. And the question was, what is the difference between activating prior knowledge and building background? Well, activating prior knowledge is actually allowing the student to use what they know already. So we all know stuff, even little children know stuff. We just don't always know what we know. We don't always make connections. So activating prior knowledge is basically saying, okay, what do you know already? And giving them really good stimuli to think about what do they know. And they might know stuff, so for example, if you're going to read a text about volcanoes, what do you know about volcanoes? Well, volcanoes explode. Volcanoes cause a lot of damage. But then that might be more or less it. That might be the limit to their knowledge. And building background would be actually showing them a video, a documentary, perhaps, about volcanoes, so that they have the opportunity to learn some more. So you start with what you know and you build some knowledge upon that. And then they have more to explore, then more to talk about. But definitely start with what you know now. Okay, so I'm going to be speaking quite generally now about teaching exam classes and also making them relevant. Now, I spent a lot of time working in Greece, and over the years we had a lot of exam classes, and teachers would quite often just say to me, oh, teaching exam classes must be very easy because, they're all the same, aren't they? all the students are the same because they're all taking the same exam, they're all doing the same material. Well, I think we can all agree that that is nonsense, that it's actually not easy to teach exam classes, and this is a fallacy. Now, I want to explore in this session what makes exam classes a bit tricky, some really important aspects that I've experienced and how we can overcome them. So they are challenging, and one reason they're challenging is that, you know, although our students may all be aiming for the same exam, they're all, you know, that's what they want to do, they want to pass that exam, they're not starting in the same place. And when they come to you in September, there's a real mishmash, a real mixture, like these sweeties. There's different flavors, different combinations, and it's not necessarily about ability, it's a lot of different things, but they really are very, very different. And some of them might feel more confident at speaking or at listening, and some of them might be excellent writers, but they're not the same. And even if they were to start off in the same place, we don't make progress at the same time. You know, sometimes you find students making quite rapid progress, sometimes students, they get really stuck, and sometimes you might even think they're going backwards, that they seem to be getting confused about something and forgetting what they knew already. So progress can be very erratic and very difficult to pull together. Obviously, some students are incredibly well motivated and some lack motivation for many different reasons. And I think these days we are more, you know, accepting of that. We understand ourselves that it's very hard to get motivated in this terrible situation that we're living in. But, you know, it's really, really hard for a lot of students at the moment. But even beyond the COVID and beyond all these things happening, motivation is not equal. It's not given equally to everybody for many different reasons. And one thing that is also I've experienced, and I'm pretty sure that you all have, is that within any exam class, you may have students who are not taking that exam. They're in that class because that is their level. That's where they have been tested at. Okay, you're B2, you're A2, you're C1. That is the class that it's appropriate for you. And we don't have classes that are not exam classes. So you have this real mixture of students in a class, even though it's allegedly this is all the students are going to take this exam. So, you know me, I like my steps and my strategies. So I am going to explore 4 approaches, 4 strategies. They're not steps, they're different things that I do in my lessons in order to address this diversity of students. The first thing I'm going to look at is this idea of how do we personalize learning? How do we make it appropriate for different people, rather than just say you're all taking the exam, you're all just going to do the same thing? How do we deal with these mixed levels? And it not that they may be mixed at the same, you know, in different skills. So there's a lot of mixture there. What do we do about exam practice? How do we make exam practice within exam classes meaningful for everybody and useful in developing, not testing, but developing the skills that they need? Because this is a class, not an exam. And how do we also make the lessons even more rich and interesting and challenging by focusing on life competencies? So these are the 4 areas I'm going to look at now. So the first thing I'm thinking of, and I'm not a football fan, but what's the goal? Why are goals important? I think this year has really shown me how important it is for me to have a goal and how important it is to kind of move forward. The goals are really important for all of us. If we don't know where we're going, we don't go anywhere. We get stuck. And Martin Covington's book is very, very interesting. It's not about EFL in particular, it's about motivation. And I'm fascinated with motivation, what motivates students. But actually, this is very interesting, this idea of actually, if we set a goal, even if it's something like, I don't know, I'm going to learn to play the piano, I'm going to lose 10 kilos, whatever that goal is, once we set it and we're very clear about it and we have a strategy, we get quite, it pulls us. It's like a magnet and we're ready to move on. But I think we've got to be aware that within our class, you know, the goals will be different. We said the students are very different, so their goals can be different. Some of them will just, I want to pass this exam. Maybe I want to pass this exam because my parents tell me I need to pass this exam. It's not a personal goal, but it's a very straightforward thing. Me, exam, pass, that's it. Now, some students might be more holistic, they might be more realistic in terms of, you know, not many people speak Albanian unless you're Albanian. And English is actually a really useful skill as a language to have, that it's a passport to the world. It's very useful to have. So they're thinking that way. They're thinking, oh, I might want to study abroad. I might want to work abroad. I might want to just, within my own country, have access to Netflix or whatever. Some students might just like studying English. I would hope that is true, because within English lessons, we get to do so much different stuff. We get to do very interesting things. Anna's just been sharing all these lovely tools for making English motivating. So we can learn, we can develop our digital literacy, let alone anything else. And for some students, and I'm thinking for teenagers in particular, but also for adults, you know, that access to things like Netflix, all these things, you listening to music, wanting to understand what people are singing in English, this is very motivating for some students. They really want to be able to do that. And that's certainly been my experience over my years of teaching, that students will say, you know, when would you say you've achieved your aims? When I can watch a film in English and understand most of it. And for some students also, they're very sensitive to the fact that in English, they get to do more. We've talked already about developing critical thinking, developing research skills. All these things have value in the real world. And I think, you know, as students develop this, when we discuss it with them, they can see that. They can see that, oh, actually, you know, I just did this project and I practiced a lot of things that are useful for other subjects or maybe for my future university life. So there's lots of different goals. So what I would suggest is that we need to talk about this. We need to get students to share this, to see where are they? And we need to know. We really do need to know this stuff. So what do you want? And how can you get there? How can you do other things in your lessons to help you get there, not just the lessons themselves? So I really see this as a conversation with students, you know, September, whenever, is to say, you know, what are your goals? You know, I mean, maybe you don't want to just pass the exam, but you want to get an A in the exam because that will be really good. What are these goals? And then students can see where they have shared goals, and you can see where they need to discuss them a bit more. Now, one of the things that I've come across in my many, many years of teaching is where students say to me, you know, Cambridge exams, well, they're really old-fashioned, aren't they, Miss Olha? And they have this idea that whatever exam they're taking is somehow different to the real world of English, that there is something maybe a bit stodgy, old-fashioned, maybe, I don't know, it's just not what they seem to have access to. So the English they do in class seems not to bear too much relation to the English that they want to have access to. So they're listening to music, they're watching movies, they think it's quite different. So what I like to do is to explore this with students, and I'm going to explore this a bit with you. So first of all, so our students are listening to music, pop music, for example, and they feel it's different. So let's think about this question. Who do you think were the top best-selling musicians in 2020? And again, you don't have to write this down. You could just think about this, because you can check your own answers. And this is interesting to think about, because this is what our students are listening to. This is the international English language medium that they have access to, that they really enjoy, because these guys are making millions. So these are the top 8. You may have thought of some of them. You may have thought of other people like Beyonce, she's up there as well. These are the people that our students are listening to. So what makes their English different? Let's have a look. So I've chosen a song here. I'm not going to play it to you because I don't trust the technology, but for homework, you can listen to it. It's a really good song to do with your students. It's by Selena Gomez, who's a lovely, beautiful young artist. And I chose this song just at random. I just Googled Selena Gomez and found a song. And I just wanted to see, if my students are listening to this, what makes it different? What makes it realer? Well, that's a terrible word, isn't it? More real than any other English that they're doing. So have a look at it yourself. Can you see any weird grammar that they would never do? Any weird vocabulary? Well, there is a bit of vocabulary, isn't there? There's a little bit unusual, but I wouldn't say it's weird or completely different. I mean, they may not have come across the plural of wolf or even the word wolf. Ali is not so common. Ease the anger is quite a nice collocation of verb and noun. But generally, the language is very straightforward. It's the stuff of our English lessons. It's lots of present perfect continuous and simple, a little bit of simple past. It's very grammatically based, and a lot of the vocabulary, dark side, moon, stranger, love, these are all very common words. These are words that you would come across very easily. One thing I might do in class with my students for something like this is to give them a listening activity and to ask them to fill in what's missing, so they can really focus on the grammar and maybe consider why we use these tenses. And that's a really nice class activity. But then I kind of think, this is not different. What makes it real to them? What makes it different or inaccessible to them after the classroom? Well, I think one of the things that really makes students feel that authentic English is different is the phonological features. Because we do simplify. I know that when I'm teaching, I speak a little bit more slowly. I grade my English, try to simplify it so it's accessible to students. But when they meet language in films, in TV, wherever, in songs, they're going to hear natural, authentic English with the speed and the stress and that linking that makes it sound different. So here is a word, it's a phrase, a sentence that I am thinking at the moment. And this is what it sounds like. I'll give you a clue. That's how I feel at the moment, very dehydrated. I'd love a cup of tea. I'd love a cup of tea. It's not I'd love a cup of tea. It's all brought together. And so students might learn something like this in the book, but when they hear it, I'd love a cup of tea, they don't hear it. They hear something foreign. So I do think it's really important to focus on this. A lot of teachers don't do very much on phonology in their lessons. Please do. It's really important. And as students work up the levels, A2, B1, B2, etc., they really need to have a grasp of authentically pronounced English. So I want to eat an apple is I want to. I want to turns into I want to. That t is first blended and then often disappears. Eaten, eaten, napple, napple. And then you get a magic thing happening here where to blend the language, you get an extra sound. I want to wheat. I want to wheat an apple. So you can understand why students would say, this isn't real. I can't understand when people are really using English because it does sound so different. So in this case, I think it's really important to focus on this so that students appreciate this is important, and they will need this at exams. They will need to be able to hear this. So what I'm really trying to say here is that students may see these two things as two separate things, English for the real world, English for exams. But actually, these two things really overlap. The basics of language are the same. And I think it's really important that students understand this, that they really then see that learning for an exam is not something that's only, I'm only going to pass this exam, but it's actually learning the language. Where there is a slight difference is obviously there is slang, which we don't cover in exams, and there is the kind of exam skills area where you have to understand the questions and you have to have certain exam skills. And I'm going to look at these now. So slang. I don't know how you feel about this, but students quite often have said to me, because I've taught a lot of teenagers and young adults, it's like, oh, we need to know these, we need to know this, it's important. Well, I think one of the reasons I don't focus on slang is that it's very elitist. That slang is not something that everybody uses the same slang, that you'll find small groups of people using it. Because one of the reasons people use slang is to exclude other people. So they don't want people to know about this. So I don't know if you know about Cockney rhyming slang. It was developed by people in London over the years. It's a very old way of speaking. So you say apples, and apples means stairs, because apples and pears rhymes with stairs, but you just say apples. So it's the reason for this is that so nobody else knows what you're saying. So it does its job in that way. There is some generic slang. Some slang words become very commonly used. So the word woke, I hear this, politicians use this now. Woke means to be sensitive to injustice, particularly things like racism and sexism. So if you're not woke, you don't understand this, and you might say things or do things that are inappropriate. And dope means just good, great, fantastic, that's dope. And there are some words that come into parlance that, you will hear it quite often, but not, this is development of language over time. Now, if students really want to find out about slang and they're really interesting, for example, they might be into hip hop, and hip hop does have a lot of slang, they can go and research it, they can go and find out about it. It's not for everybody, it's not everybody's goal. And anyway, a lot of it can be guessed. A lot of it, like any unknown word, can be guessed from the context, from the way it's said. And it's not desperately important to learn. And to be honest, these things do go out of fashion. My first teaching was in London. I was a state school teacher at a secondary school. And I was always listening to the kids when they were talking. And I was very young. I wanted to be, you know, groovy and up to date. And I would try and pick up what they were saying and I would try and use it. And they would just shake their heads and they would say, no, that was, we don't do that anymore. That's old fashioned now, miss. So I kind of gave up because it's very hard to keep up to date with all these things. So it's worth a conversation. It's worth, you know, noticing these things, talking about it, reassuring students, but it doesn't have a place generally in my lessons. Because what does have a place in my lessons is the language that has coverage that everybody is using. Even Selena Gomez is using grammar and vocabulary. But a lot of the language you use is actually kind of lexical grammar or the kind of phrases that carry a lot of meaning and are used across the board and are very authentic. So things like lexical phrases where you have 2 or 3 words or more become a chunk of language and are used as one word, and you have to learn them at that. And they are used in reports, they're used in spoken English. It's very widely used. It's very real. Phrasal verbs. I know students go crazy with them, but they are very common and they're often used more than the equivalent. So lots of phrasal verbs are very, very authentic and they're always up to date. And of course, the kind of spoken language that is used generally. Now, I think it's really important not to make a huge distinction. So, we don't want to look at spoken language. We just want to look at written language in exam classes, because that's not right. They are going to have to speak and listen. And exams reflect what is authentic, and people use these expressions. So it's really useful to focus on these things in class, to look at expressions. So things like you're holding people up. This is a phrase that we use a lot, to hold somebody up. It's a phrasal verb. It's something common and something that you will hear in the street and something that you might come across in an exam, because exams are reflecting authentic language. So let's think also about what we, the bare bones of what we do in our English lessons. And I was just thinking about this and thinking, what are the topics? Why would students maybe feel that the topics aren't real? So when we're preparing for exams, we cover a wide range of topics, but do they reflect reality? Well, I just grabbed a book, opened the book, course book, and looked at the topics and thought, do they reflect my reality? You look at these things, do they reflect your reality? Unit 3 is pretty much my free time, is mostly screen time these days because I can't see my friends. Unit 5 is my dream time, where I'm just thinking about holidays, and Unit 6 is all my time where I'm eating. So these topics are real. They actually are personal, because not everything. I mean, keep fit. Don't tell anyone, but that's not. But these are generally things that have some personal resonance for everyone. So even if you're doing something like you're looking at food, that's your topic, there is something for everybody. Even if you say, I don't like this, I've never had it, this is real. This is something that we talk about, we do every day. So within exam practice, within exam preparation, it's not separate to you. There is a lot of personalization that can go on there. Okay, we said that, sorry, I said, I'm involving you in my conversation, that one of the problems we have with exam classes is that students don't always start at the same place. Sometimes they're just put together because of their age, and they could be very mixed levels. So what do we do about that? Now, one thing I think is really useful is this idea of the flipped classroom, that rather than give work after we address some grammar or vocabulary in the classroom, we usually give homework, that the homework comes before that activity that you do together. And this, I think, is especially useful now when so many of us are doing online teaching and learning. So, for example, imagine your students are going to do something about food. The next unit is food, countables and uncountables. Well, for some students, it would be very useful to review this grammar. Maybe they just haven't got it, they missed it, they're confused. Let them say, okay, the next unit is on this. Please go over this. Please try and, revise it, do some exercise on it. You might even use, Anna was talking about different apps. English Grammar in Use, you can have a telephone app for this now, so you can just use that to quickly look over this language to get yourself ready to do the lesson. Now, for some people, they don't need that, but they might do something else they can bring to the lesson. And this, I think, would be great for online teaching, is that some students might go, okay, I'm going to go and do a quiz. I'm going to do some research, find out about weird and wonderful food around the world, and share that with the class. Another student might do a presentation, which they could share on Zoom, on PowerPoint, about vocabulary for different food. So different people can bring different things to the lesson. They can be ready for the lesson, they can contribute, but they can do it at their own level. And the students that need that extra push can spend that time just focusing on the bare bones of that, maybe that grammar in particular. So we do have this idea of, students doing things at different paces. And this doesn't mean that we're always the hare, or we're always the tortoise, or we're the hare and the tortoise in the same situations. But we're not all good at the same things at the same time, at the same speed. And it's very useful for students to have the ability to work at their own speed. So if you are a hare and you're zooming along, why not do stuff that's a bit more challenging? Don't get bored. Push yourself. Go to places where, like making a presentation for the class, like looking at some language at the next level. Why not? This is a nice, reasonable thing to do. The biggest thing that I think really addresses our mixed students is collaborative learning, is working together, helping each other. Even if it's an exams class, there's no reason why they shouldn't all be collaborating. It is not the exam. It is a developmental opportunity. So when students work together, they all benefit. The students that need explanations, that need help, need support, will get it. And the students that can give that will enrich their experience, and they'll have the opportunity to think about that language. I think it was Einstein that said, if you can't, oh no, it's Mahatma Gandhi, sorry. Mahatma Gandhi said, if you can't explain something simply to a child, you don't understand it. So the ability to explain to your classmate helps you to understand it and to realize you understand it. And this is an opportunity for students to work in groups. They can do it online for homework in small groups. They can do it in breakout rooms on things like Zoom. And I was talking about personalizing what you do. I think we have to move away from this idea that we just give the same homework to everybody. Students don't need to do the same work. And in class, it's very difficult to differentiate. But for homework, it's not difficult to allow students to do other things. And I think, you know, we don't have to mark everything. We don't have to give everybody the same mark. We have to help them grow. So they can access, and this is something we don't have to worry about. I think, you know, some teachers might think, oh, it's a lot more work for me. As Anna showed, there's lots of stuff out there that they can access that could be suitable. So if they are having problems with a passive voice, they can find activities on that. If they're having problems with the reading questions at first for schools, they can access that. If they need to develop language, they've completely missed, they don't have any vocabulary about transport, they can do that. There is that opportunity to personalize it and to make it relevant for them. And if they want to learn about, you know, hip hop lyrics, they can listen to hip hop songs. And there's, as I said, lots of tools for this. So students can really take control of homework. And I think we need to trust them to do so. It's like people working from home for the past year. Apparently, I heard on the radio this morning that people are working longer hours and are more productive without the boss standing over them. So students can choose what they do when they do it, but also who they do it with. So homework can be a collaborative thing as well, where they can just get on their phone to their friend, FaceTime them and just say, let's look at this together. Let's plan this together. Now, many exam preparation classes do end up having a certain element of just doing an exam in class. In an exam type situation where you're working in silence, you've got, you know, the teacher's got their watch, and that's what we do. I think it's a really bad idea to do this to any extent, especially if you're just starting in September and they're taking the exam in May. You know, they're not ready. And if you give them lots of tests, which they do badly on, they're going to believe that they're failing, that this is, you know, that they can't do it. This is not something that they're ready for. And I think that's a very bad psychological trend to get into. I think we have better things to do in class. If we are there, if we're just watching them take a test, you know, it's a waste of time. They could do that at home if they need to, and they don't need to do it very often under those conditions. And also for those students who are not going to take the exam, it's a complete waste of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a few ways of doing exam type questions to build the skills and to let everybody contribute and to make it valuable for everyone. So with a listening, here's an example here of a listening. I say to the students, right, we're not going to listen. I will give them quite often just the questions, even without the ABC options and the rubric. And I would just ask them to guess. What do you think is going to happen? Now, this is developing the really good skill of predicting, of bringing in what you know about the topic already. The vocabulary will come in. This is probably over 50% of listening, is this skill of being ready for what you listen, to have made your guesses, to have made your assumptions, to have activated all that vocabulary before you listen. And this gives everybody an opportunity to share vocabulary, to collaborate. And quite often I'll say, no, we don't need to listen. And the students say, no, we want to hear it now. We want to check our assumptions. So that's a nice activity. Another activity here is doing a multiple choice in groups, reading the text or listening, checking your answers, and then sharing whatever answer you got together as a group, which allows you to, again, share ideas, brainstorm, negotiate, discuss, listen to alternatives, and it adds a bit of fun to it. Right, the last thing I'm going to talk about now is this idea of life skills, life competencies. I think for many students, they want to see a connection between what they do in class and the real world. What makes it real? Well, allowing students to synthesize real skills with language, I think, is really valuable. So lots of course books now you'll see have this, either it's life competencies, life skills. So things like collaboration, group work, project work, all these things, as I said right at the beginning, allow students to use their English and develop all these other skills. So for example, giving presentations. This is a real skill, getting your research, thinking about what makes a good presentation, as I said in my previous session, and using that language, using the language which you're learning in your book to make something real. And finally, I think it's really important for students to see every lesson that what they're doing is connected to real life. And I use things like this, these little sort of sentence fragments for students to think about what they did and how it relates to reality. So what was useful for me, because it was useful for me to do phonology because it helps me understand songs. I enjoyed this lesson because we worked together and my friend helped me. This helps me in part 2 of the reading paper because we did some really interesting practice. I still want my teacher to help me because I'm not sure about this. Oh, I can bring some ideas. I can do this research to my lesson. And this helps the students to see the process. I don't want to tell the students this. They should see it themselves. My final quote here, and I think this is really important, that students, in order for lessons to be real, they need to find meaning in them. They have to be meaningful. So I'm going to look to see if there are any questions, and I'll see if I'll answer them in the question box. Here is my blog again, if you want to get in touch with me, and I shall pass you back to Bruna. Thank you very much, Bruna.